In my last video, we talked about why consistency feels pointless before it works, and why the feedback loop is broken early on. But that raised a question that everyone asks next. How do you know if you're just early or you're walking in completely the wrong direction? I like staying close to what's happening in culture, in tech, in media, and I've noticed that what I'm interested in now often becomes what my more normal friends care about in 6 months or a year, sometimes even longer down the line. And that's not to brag, it's just a pattern I've noticed. If you've read this book called Crossing the Chasm, you'll be familiar with the idea of innovators, early adopters, early majority and late majority. And I've realised over time that I tend to sit pretty firmly in that early adopter group. What this means is I'm often talking about things before most people care. And on social media, that usually looks like me posting to a very small audience, getting very little feedback, and wondering whether I'm ahead of the curve or if I'm completely off it. So the question's fair. How do you actually tell the difference? Part of the confusion is that online platforms collapse timing and quality into the same signal. If something does well, we assume it was good, and if something doesn't, we assume it was wrong. But these two things aren't the same. Being early often looks identical to being wrong, especially when attention is the only feedback you're getting. This is why educational and informational niches often reward timing more than people admit. If you hit a topic just as the interest is rising, the same quality video suddenly looks genius. If you're early, it looks ignored. This is why personally I prefer YouTube and TikTok over Instagram. They at least have some form of search and discovery over time. Instagram, in my experience, it really punishes bad timing. If you're not on the trend, it doesn't work. If you're not hitting the trend just as it's going up, hopefully that's in the right direction, going up. If you're not hitting the trend just as it's sort of going up, it's just a flop, right? Even on YouTube, great timing doesn't mean instant clarity, and that's where a lot of people get tripped up. One of the most important things to understand is that early on, YouTube isn't evaluating your potential, it's trying to understand you. The algorithm needs repetition. It needs to see multiple videos on related ideas. It needs to observe who watches and who leaves, who stays, who comes back. I guess you could think of it as a bit like digestion. You can't judge a meal while you're still chewing, but you're kind of getting the flavour for it, right? Putting in all sorts of random things. I think your body, your mouth, your tongue doesn't really know what's going on. It's a bit like the algorithm in that sense. If your ideas are too sporadic, if you're jumping across too many topics, you might actually be covering 2 or 3 niches without realising it. And when that happens, the platform keeps testing you against the wrong audiences, and every video feels like a miss. But really, the system just hasn't gathered enough information yet. That's not hostility, it's just incompleteness. There's this creator on YouTube, Dave Geltner, and he started out making card game design, extremely niche, and for I think about 6 to 8 months he was just slogging away with very little to show for it, respectfully, and he got really close to giving up. And then one video hit, and then another, and then another. So he wasn't late to the trend, but he was possibly early to quitting, so there's a difference there. Another example I can think of is Mango Street. They built a huge channel around photography and cameras, loads of success, right? If you're any background in cameras or photography, you've probably come across them. Over lockdown, they decided to split and start separate channels. One went into finance and the other went into fitness. Daniel's channel exploded pretty quickly. Millions of views, immediate traction. Rachel's fitness channel though, that didn't. It was kind of flat for a while. And when you're comparing yourself to the person you live with every day and work with, and they're going off like this and you're kind of just like, I can see that being a bit tough. But fast forward 6 months later, Daniel's channel cooled off a bit and Rachel's took off. Millions of views, massive growth. And they've got the same experience, the same skill level, the same platform knowledge, just different timeline. Neither were early to an evergreen niche. They were just early to their own payoff. This is where I think we imagine things wrong. We think being early looks like slow, steady progress. A nice, gentle, upward curve, small but consistent validation. And sadly, that's not what it looks like. Early just looks like chaos. One video is getting 200 views, the next one gets 18, and then one randomly gets 2,000 views 3 weeks after you've posted it. And your best performing video is the one you didn't care about, and the most polished one that you spent 40 hours on gets 40 views. And again, this isn't a failure. This is just a platform figuring out what you are. YouTube doesn't know yet if you're a tutorial channel or a commentary channel. It doesn't know if your audience are 19-year-olds or 45-year-olds. It's testing and it's missing a bit. A lot. probably all the time. It's because these sample sizes are so small that the swings are so extreme. Early is also when you're still learning faster than the platform is. You're figuring out your tone, your pacing, what you actually enjoy making, and importantly what you can sustain. And the platform can't optimize for a target that's still moving, and early on you're still moving. The hardest part is that silence is ambiguous. When you're small, not enough people are seeing your videos for the data to really mean anything. Your thumbnail isn't being tested properly. You know, when you're early on and you're like, now we can A/B test our thumbnails, but our videos are being shown to like 7 people, so you can't really A/B test that. You kind of need to be along a bit for that to be any good. The same with your title. That's not quite being tested properly. It's probably the best thing to start off with, like for the A/B test, title only, and never thumbnail and title at the same time. I don't know who that's for or when that's going to work. Doesn't make any sense, but anyway, your title's not being tested properly. Maybe you can try out different titles, see which one works for when those times when you do get shown. But also what I think with the testing of the titles, you've got 3 opportunities there to like put a quite good like SEO title, and maybe another one that's kind of like YouTube optimized, you know, one of those viral titles. I've got a video up here that will help you with that if you want to do the viral thing. But yeah, you've got 3 shots there to play with your title, see if you can get somewhere with it. I think that's the best thing to do. But anyway, again, I digress. Your title isn't being tested properly. You don't know if people didn't click or if they never saw it. So the danger is over-interpreting that data. Low views doesn't mean failure, and 1 or 2 flops don't really mean anything. You're just sort of being reactionary, and being reactionary just resets that learning. You know, most people sort of don't quit outright, and they do it slowly, and they kind of adjust themselves out of the progress. You know, the silence just becomes unbearable, so you pivot to try and get something. Now, this doesn't mean you should never question the direction you're going in. There are real reasons to pivot. They're just not what most people think. You should question your direction if you've genuinely been consistent for months and you've learned nothing. Not I haven't grown, but I don't understand what works any better than when I started. You should question it if you genuinely can't articulate who your content is for, not in marketing language, but in real language, like English. And you should question it if the work itself feels fundamentally misaligned. Not hard, not boring, but wrong. And notice what's not on that list. Discomfort isn't on it, boredom isn't on it, slow growth isn't on it. Those parts are like the wavy middle. They're not actually anything, and we all get those moments. It's just not the important bit right now. So when the question comes up, is this just early or is this wrong? I think here's a better way to think about it. You should ask yourself, do I lack results or do I lack information? Because those are 2 different problems. If you lack information, you probably haven't stayed long enough to decide. You're reacting to the chaos, the silence, the lack of information. Am I bored or am I unclear? Boredom responds to novelty. Unclearness, unclarity needs attention. And the last one is, have I stayed long enough to learn anything real? Not long enough to succeed, long enough to learn. If the answer is no, you're not deciding from clarity, you're guessing. Here's what I keep coming back to. Most people don't quit because they failed. They quit because they got tired of not knowing. And the way through this isn't certainty, it's patience with uncertainty. So actively being patient is what we need here. You don't know if it's working yet. You just need to know if you're still learning. If you are, stay. So once you've accepted that you're early, the question now becomes, what do I actually focus on during this phase? Because most creators still get that part wrong, and that's what I'll break down in my next video. Okay, see you over there.